never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi guys, welcome back to Neff Inspiration, a show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stephan Neff. Today I've got Reed Davis with me. Reed is an amazing man who has made it his mission, his passion to go out there and to look at health in a different way. Like me, he's a functional medicine practitioner and he has helped thousands of people with functional testing and advice that ranges throughout the whole breadth of well-being, because that's the only way how we can actually address our chronic state of illness, often enough, our state of unwellness. Most of us are not running optimal engines within us, and there are many, many reasons for that. So today we're going to take a deep dive into functional medicine. Reed, welcome to my show.
Well, thank you, Stephan, very much for having me here today.
I mean, we have got, in theory, all the knowledge nowadays. We are drowning in knowledge. We are drowning in being led around by our noses, like sheep to the slaughter, by some very powerful forces behind the scenes. So that kind of information that is being handed to us, I always teach my children, first of all, ask if what you're being told is true. The second is what you're told, why are you told that? And if you start looking at our information with that lens, maybe I've answered my first question. Despite having all this knowledge, we are getting sicker and sicker and sicker at an alarming rate. Would you not agree to that statement?
I would completely agree with that. In our business, you never run out of sick people, that's for sure.
And it's getting worse and worse and worse. I've recently put together a talk which was looking at the obesity epidemic in the United States.
Oh,
And I say United States, but you're only a few years ahead of many other Western countries. And it's crazy. It is. So within the last 10 years alone, we are now to a point where more than 50% of the United States is obese and morbidly obese and often super morbidly obese. You're talking some really health damaging states of chronic living that are way beyond it's my body is my choice, my body, don't fat shame me. It is one thing to be proud of your curves as a woman or as a man, not minding a bit of extra padding. It is another thing of being basically on a fast track to death. Why are we where? How did we get here? We should be knowing better.
yeah, we should. Well, there's a lot of talk about what's going on, and I'm in the camp of those that believe the economic forces are mostly controlling, what we eat and what time we go to bed and what we watch on TV and all these things. So, in our world, we're just subjected to an entire environment that's not very healthy. I'm going to move this back a bit. It's giving me some vibes here. And I started in environmental law, as you mentioned, saving the whole planet, air, birds, water, trees, bees, and then in the late 90s, if you see enough dead fish and dead birds, etc., you start wondering, what about people?
Ooh, ouch.
What's going on with us, including me. So I was very healthy, I thought, and I just changed jobs. I want to work with people now. So I went to work in a clinic, mostly to run the business and help them build up it's a wellness center in Southern California. And so I started seeing the effects of the environment, which I'd been studying and trying to save, again, animals and trees and birds and what you have, and to just people. And it was such an interesting and fascinating time over 25 years ago now. to see the damage done, and there's a direct parallel. So it wasn't a hard shift in terms of mission and purpose in life and things like that. But I had a lot to learn about why. Trying to answer your question, well, why are people so sick? And that became really evident with every person walking in the office, Stephan, had been to 6 or 8 or 10 different practitioners already.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, that's weird. I'd never really been to a doctor myself, except for sports injuries, motorcycle accidents and surfing, things we do in Southern California. And so I was amazed, and I saw how trapped in this cycle of trial and error. They've been to the doctor. Believe it or not, some had been told nothing's wrong with you. Your blood work looks normal. You've heard that one? I'm
So
sure
often.
people listening they get it. There's, oh, you're fine. So you weren't diseased yet. You weren't clinical. So my job became subclinical investigation into underlying causes and conditions. I wanted to know what's really wrong with people. And I would be out of my motorcycle thinking about the poor folks back at the office, and what could I do as a layperson? Because I wasn't a physician, and yet I had determined in my mind, at least, that I was going to be the last person they needed to see. Now that's kind of naive, I guess, but I just thought, well, I could do this. I can help some of these people at least. And so I started running laboratory work, and I just became well known in the area and with the vendors, the laboratories. Eventually, one of them asked me, "Who the hell are you?" What do you mean? I'm Reed. He goes, "Well, yeah, but you run more lab work than any 5 doctors we have as our customers." And so I just will round this off by saying that what's wrong with people, to answer your question, is I've just learned to call it metabolic chaos. And I recognize patterns. I worked in that office for 10 years, and all I cared about was helping the people walking in the door. I wasn't trying to establish any international movement like we have today, but I just wanted to be good at what I was doing, to learn. I had a lot to learn, but you'll like this. I had nothing to unlearn.
Good point. Ooh, good point. That, of
Yeah,
course, is
so
is something that in medicine I mean, for Christ's sake, I went for a quarter of a century, I went to school. Okay, starting really from class one till I was finally a specialist. That's a hell of a long time. There's a hell of a lot of learning there. And so you're right. You're right. But the Dean of Harvard in 1956 said, gentlemen, lady, well, there were a few ladies probably in there too, but it was really more old-fashioned. About 50% of what I've taught you now is either obsolete or proven wrong in 10 years' time. We just don't know which 50% it is. Now, that was in 1956. Nowadays, we are considering it probably 5 years, that time span. There is so much that we constantly are learning. And those of us who have gone to university or have done a lot of other learning, unfortunately, it's hard to unlearn. What do they say? It takes 300 repetitions to learn a new skill, a new, let's say you throw a ball, how to throw it properly. It takes 300 repetitions to throw it properly. It takes 3,000 repetitions to unlearn a mistake. And I think you're so on the money there.
there was a lot for me to learn, obviously, and but I went about it in a very scientific way because I'd come from environmental law and understanding things, at least on a very legal way. Now, by the way, the world has been cleaned up just in terms of the environment. When I first started studying, uh, the rivers were catching on fire. There were dead lakes. Matter of fact, I grew up partly on Lake Erie, a huge lake in Canada. And the lake was dead because of pollutants. So the laws here changed in 1970s, and hippie lawyers started suing the government and the military and these big companies that were polluting our lakes and rivers and
Mm,
streams and the air and everything. So a lot of that has been cleaned up. The same place where the lake was dead, I'm talking about a huge lake, is now the walleye or pickerel capital of the world. In other words, there's great fish that you can get. You can even order it online. I live in Southern California. I can order, fresh caught, frozen, one of my favorite fish from childhood from this lake. So we've done a lot to clean the place up. But in terms of overall health, it's really, as you said, there's obesity and disease is epidemic, and everyone kind of knows that. So I just wanted to go back to the story for a minute and say that I I learned by running lab work on people, thousands and thousands of labs on thousands and thousands of people. Now, I
mm.
had great mentorship, as you did, I'm sure. I was thinking when you said 1956, I was alive in 1956. I'm thinking many of our listeners probably weren't born yet, but I've been around, and I've always tried to do some good in the world and keep the right attitude and things like that. And
Mm,
so my work was my life. I was helping people,
mm,
but I was not yet in the early days recognize the patterns that I recognize now. So I spent 10 years. I had great
mm,
mentorship,
mm,
but I also made a lot of my own observations,
mm,
and that's what has formed the basis of what we do now.
mm,
We now teach in 50 different countries, including New Zealand and Australia and Canada and the United Kingdom, and the uh, places like the first world, so to speak. And we're working on other countries too. So what are we teaching them is what I observed in those 10 years were patterns. Again, I'm kind of just revolving back to your question, what's wrong with people?
mm,
And they have hormone imbalances, immune
mm,
system challenges, they have digestive challenges, detoxification systems aren't up to speed.
mm,
Even producing energy on a cellular level is deficient. And then, of course, we have our nervous systems, in which case, today I see a lot of overly sympathetic dominant type things going on with stress and
mm,
anxiety and,
mm,
and on and on and on. So the pattern I recognize over this 10-year period, running thousands of labs on thousands of people. What's wrong is hormones, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, nervous system. Now that spell's hidden. And it's kind of cute that that spell's hidden because a lot of these things are hidden from us. And so that was a big part of what I had to do in the
mm,
office was find out. Because remember, Mrs. Smith and Mr. Jones, who were coming in, and every other name you can imagine, had been to a doctor, been told nothing's wrong with you,
mm,
or they've been told, this is your diagnosis and here's your medication.
mm,
And of course, that wasn't working for them. They wanted, and they were willing to take some responsibility, which is, I think, what it all falls back on. And like who's going to be in charge of your health? I would ask anyone. And it used again, I'd be out on my motorcycle. I ride all the time in the hills of Southern California. I know every mountain and desert road, and it's really wonderful. And it gives you a chance to really think about this. And I would think, why are these people putting their health in someone else's hands? And then that person didn't help them. So they go to the next person, they go to the next person, they go to the next
mm,
person. And they might get little incremental, might lose a couple pounds, have a little
mm,
more energy, but they're still basically in a downward spiral. And so that's what I was intended to help solve.
mm,
And so by again running the labs, it was the saliva testing, urine testing, stool testing, blood testing, even hair and tissue and things like that. So I became a kind of an expert in lab work as it applies to all natural solutions because I couldn't get out the prescription pad, which was turned out to be really a good thing. Like the doctors who worked at the clinic would kind of laugh. gee, Reed, our job's easy. We just diagnose and treat. You have to figure out what's actually wrong with the people and then teach them. And this is the key. Then teach them how to fix it. And
Absolutely.
so I started telling the patients coming in our clinic, hey, look, I see you're coming in 3 days a week. You're getting this treatment and that treatment. We had chiropractic and acupuncture and all kinds of alternative things. I said, but it's really what you're doing at home
Mm,
that's going to make the biggest difference. And so, well, what does that mean? Well, it's your diet, it's
mm,
your rest, it's your
mm,
exercise, it's your
mm,
stress reduction and supplementation. Now, I don't sell supplements, but I know an awful lot about them. And so that spells D.R.E.S.S, diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation. So what I've discovered in that 10 years, was that the H.I.D.D.E.N, we do our investigation, we call it all, and here's the key to that. You're looking at all these causal factors. Sometimes they're very far upstream. They're way removed from where the symptoms are occurring. And here's something you don't hear a lot of other places, because you've heard that before. It's that those causal factors are affecting each other
mm,
in ways that can't even be measured sometimes. Now, so there isn't enough lab work. There's no way to test how does this cause interact with that cause. And here's another funny thing about that, causal factors. People are always looking for the root cause. It's in the handle underneath their signature. I look for the root cause in that. And that's a worthy endeavor, of course. But guess what? According to recent research from the University of California, San Diego, the root cause, the main causal factor, may not even exist anymore. It could have
mm.
it could have disappeared
Yeah,
years ago. So you're
absolutely.
looking for it. No, it started a downward spiral, but
Mm,
you're never going to really find it. So again, this whole idea of root cause, root cause, root cause, root cause is great to look for them. If you can find one and that solves your problem, amazing, miracle. Uh, but you have to get lucky
mm,
to do that consistently. So what became much more consistent, remember, I had to help every person. I couldn't just help some and not the next one and give up and that kind of thing. It just wasn't in me at the time.
mm,
And so it was this interaction between the causal factors
mm.
that also had to be sorted out. So I simply call the one diagnosis, if you will, what's wrong with people, finally answering your question you asked me 20 minutes ago. It's called metabolic chaos.
Mm,
It's all these things interacting with each other. And so you need a system. If you don't have a step-by-step system for someone to follow, which includes an investigation that's very thorough, all the hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, nervous system imbalances and dysfunctions,
mm,
and again, affecting each other. You need a step-by-step system, kind of a stairway to walk, and then you need to put the power in that person's hands to do something about it themselves, so that they're not dependent upon the practitioner. Now, that sounds bad for business, but it's not, because when you help people, the rewards are much more than just financial,
mm,
and I could tell you story after story, Stephan, of even as I think of them, the chills run up my spine of how
yeah,
you helped a person. And they do reward you financially. They refer their friends and neighbors and families and coworkers. And
absolutely.
so you have a very robust practice, not by keeping people sick, but by actually helping them to get well themselves. So that's what we're all about here.
But Reed, that sounds like a lot of work when nowadays we've got such powerful drugs. Take Ozempic or the GLP-1 or whatever the newest drug is. Look, I mean, we are teaching these drugs new tricks. They are now panacea for everything. Yeah, I'm living a busy life, Reed. I can't do all that. But so just prescribe me that
Well,
whatever
yeah,
new drug is.
the GLP-1, the glucagon-like peptide. Well, peptides are huge now. People are injecting subcutaneously all kinds of peptides. Peptides are just little short chains of amino acids, so they're proteins away, and it's been discovered that they're helpful in certain areas. Your body makes them, but you can augment with these wonderful things. Yeah, they can be helpful, but the real power is in what you put in your mouth every day. It's the epigenetic factors that we have control over. So it's no longer your genes, that's genetics. It's epigenetics, which is how you treat yourself, how you treat your
Mm,
brain, body, mind, soul, and
mm,
energy and things like that. So yeah, there's stuff. Look, I've got some things around here that, they're helpful as and I do believe in supplementation for a number of reasons. I could go through those four main reasons, but it's really the the environment, including your food, how much quality rest you get, how much exercise you do. And a huge one has been stress reduction.
mm.
And I read in a magazine that was on our coffee table or the waiting room table in the office it was an article on stress I read in 2001. It was the cause of 80% of all doctors' visits and 50% of all diseases. So I started studying stress and the effects of stress on the body, including what it does to your hormones. So, and again, I don't know what kind of, I don't know how fast I should be putting people to sleep here with
Oh.
the data, because it can really glaze the eyes over when
No,
you said it's a
yeah.
lot of work. You're right. It's a
I
ton of
think
work. It's a ton of data to be collected and to be assessed.
absolutely. Now, Reed, I think that of course that was a devil's advocate question here. There are amazing breakthroughs in our understanding of physiology and pathophysiology, and there are amazing new things coming on the market. The problem is that you're not dealing with the underlying smoldering fire that has kept the imbalances going. So you're actually somehow tweaking some of the end results with the new drugs, but they come with their own potential side effects. And we don't know long-term data. So you have been basically eating pizza and trash for the last 40, 50 years. Now you're expecting a weekly injection or some tablets to magically undo the damage that you have done in 50 years. And I'm not saying you can't undo it, but it won't be a quick fix. And I think that is so important, especially in a time of expected immediate satisfaction, immediate response to something. It will not work and it will bite you in the bum. It's not to say that there is not a subgroup of patients who clearly deserve such medications as a kickstart. But if then nothing else happens, then you're going to be back just as much as 95% of your diets will fail because yes, you're very rigid and yes, you can do it, but they're not sustainable. This is not a life you can live. So yes, you might lose 10 kilogram and look good in a bikini. I've never tried. Do you look good in a bikini? I don't know. I wonder, Reed.
Fantastic. Just
But you get the idea. You can't play this game of yo-yo and of all in and then just let yourself go. And we
so
have
drugs.
better ways.
Originally, like I said, I couldn't write a prescription, and then it turned out to be the best thing for the whole endeavor was that, hey, Reed, you have to find out what's really wrong with people.
Mm,
And so drugs were never an option for me. And of course, they are good for symptoms. Here's the way I'd like to, something I'd like to just illustrate so that people understand we're not anti-doctor, we're not anti-drug per se. I mean, if you're just masking symptoms, we know that's wrong. But so when would you go to see an alternative practitioner versus a conventional or standard or traditional practitioner? Well, if the downward spiral that a person is in is really contracted, then you need to go see a medical professional to stop the progress of that thing. It's perfectly acceptable that if you're bleeding to death, you go get
mm.
someone to stop the bleeding. If you get shot in a drive-by shooting, as happens a lot here in the U.S., you don't call your nutritionist. Or if it's you get off a plane from West Africa and your temperature's 105 and you're bleeding from your eyeballs, you're not going to call your FDN practitioner.
Mm,
That's what we call ourselves. You're going to go get the urgent, heroic, acute care that you need to get out of the woods, to get the life preserver on, whatever analogy you'd like to use. But then we take over. So what that means is that the observations that we make, so I run labs, hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, and so on. Saliva, blood, urine, stool. We're getting data from a person, but we need time to capitalize on it
mm,
because we've got to take time to heal. You got to take time to reverse some of the damage,
mm,
and get you to where you're well. Now, we also, by the same token, you can get from unwell to well, but you can get from well to super performance, to
mm,
longevity and
mm,
anti-aging and things like that. So it's the same thing. Now that takes time,
mm,
healing. It takes some forming some pretty good habits and
mm,
getting rid of some bad ones.
mm,
And it takes knowledge and awareness and consciousness and things like that. So we're not saying don't go to the doctor. We're saying don't go for the things that need to be healed because that's not what they do best,
mm,
right? So if you again drive-by shooting,
mm,
you've got some horrible something you've contracted, you got to go see a doctor.
mm,
But then you're in art, then you're going to get out and you're going to be ripe for learning a new lifestyle, doing some different
mm.
alternative testing.
I
That's
like
what I
that.
would say about
I
that.
like that. And we need to go a bit more into that because the testing is actually often we compare apples and oranges. Imagine you've got a really expensive car and you've spent gazillions on your car. Do you just put enough water in that the car doesn't overheat? Do you just put enough oil in so that the lamps, the warning lights don't go on? Probably not. But that is the distinction, the warning lights going on that doctors and people in more allopathic settings distinguish sickness from wellness. Or I shouldn't call it wellness, sickness from not being sick. Let's call it like that. From not being sick, you have got that whole gamut of absolute super perfect balance within the system, which is incredibly rare, towards, oh, just hanging in there, which is probably the vast majority of people. And I think the functional testing, that is where that comes in. We are basically preventing the red lights coming on. We are going in there and actually shifting the whole system to such optimal performance that it is less and less likely that the lights coming on. And when I talk about lights, I don't mean that the engine is overheating. I'm talking cancer. I'm talking uh, degenerative brain disease, Alzheimer's.
Oh yeah.
I'm talking the diabetes. I'm talking all those kind of things. Once your feet are rotting off because of the diabetes, it's a little bit late to actually do something about it whilst
Yeah, good
you
point.
so my point. So there is so much more, and that's where the functional testing comes in. We are distinguishing where you are on that slippery slope from
Sure.
to prevent you becoming sick, or in fact, if you're already sick, how to potentially reverse that process, or how we optimize the scenario. For example, functional medicine will not be able to magically cure a cancer, but it maybe create a different setting, a different environment within you that makes it less likely for this cancer to spread massively and rapidly throughout your system. So we are not doing
Sure.
magical miracles, no, but there is so much. And I think
Although
that,
I'll tell you, I've seen some amazing things happen, not so much with cancer, although a lot of people combine a natural approach with some kind
mm,
of nutritional
mm,
approach along with medicine and things like that. And they
mm,
can keep, once they're in remission, it can stay away maybe almost forever, we hope.
mm,
But some of the, I'll call them miracles in a way, we're finding a trigger. Like I had a woman who was having migraines so badly. She was in her dark room with a pillow over her head 5 days a week.
Mm.
that kind of migraines. And we ran a couple labs and discovered some things that she was sensitive to, eliminated those things. And guess what? Within 7 or 8 days, she didn't have any more migraines. She actually said to me, Reed, I'm so thankful I'm only having normal headaches now. Which we laugh at because we know there's no such thing as a normal headache. But to her, that was such an improvement that she called that her miracle, you know.
Yeah.
And I could tell you how the story ended up that way down the road and things. I had another woman that you'll like this story, I think, Stephan, and I hope your listeners get that. Um, when you are have the mindset, it's a way of thinking that it's not the symptom isn't the problem, it's the result of the problem.
Mm.
And so the problem is upstream. Again, I call it metabolic chaos, and that could be a lot of different things going on. So the symptom isn't the problem. So if all you do is have a red light, that's the symptom. You could just put a piece of tape over it, and you don't see the red light anymore, right? So, oh, is it? No, nothing's been fixed. Of course, I like the car analogy from that point of view. Or other people, might just cut the wires to the red. Just cut the wires to the red. Hey,
Yep.
problem solved, right? No more. So the symptom is not the problem. Now, I had a lady come in our office. She was on her seventh or eighth visit for chiropractic and acupuncture things. Um, and I saw her down look one day. She was just looked upset as hell. And I'm walking her back to her treatment room. And for our chiropractic patients, we would give them some trigger point therapy, which I did. I was an expert in myofascial therapy, and then a heat pack, and then the chiropractor would come in and do their adjustments and things like that. So I said, "Hey, first name? What's wrong?" She goes, "Oh, Reed, it's this weight, this 40 pounds. I'm 40 pounds overweight, and it's really frustrating me." Now, I'm the happy guy. I would be like, well, what are we going to do? Oh, she wasn't hearing it that day. She said, it's just so frustrating. And it's because I'm on this medication that's made me fat, and I've been on it for 2 years. So she's telling me I've been on this medication for 2 years, and it's made me gain this 40 pounds, and it's just so. And the medication is for the hives, so she gets blotchy red patches all over
Mm.
her body all the time if she's not taking the medication. And so, and again, I'm ready to help, and I'm here for you. And no, she wasn't hearing it. She could read. I was in the doctor's office the other day getting a checkup, and I told him how frustrating this weight was, this 40 pounds overweight. And I said, Doctor, it's just so frustrating. He said, Lady, you can be fat or you can have the hives,
Ha
according
ha
to her. Now now I'm seeing why she's so upset, and I'm ready to jump in, and she still wasn't done. She says, and said to the doctor, Reed, well, that's very depressing. And according to her, he said, well, I'll be happy to write your prescription for antidepressants. Now we're laughing because, but at the time, she didn't think that was very funny at all. And here's
Mm.
the kicker. So
Yeah.
finally I got to say to her, and now I've got her, we've walked all the way back to the treatment room. I'm ready to put her on the table and do a little trigger point on her shoulders and neck. And I said, well, first name, did you ever try to find out why you get the hives? And her head snapped around so hard, Stephan, I thought she wouldn't need her chiropractic adjustment that day. She just was, what? What do you mean? I said, find out why you get the
Yeah.
hives.
Yeah.
So, instead of just disconnecting the red light, she'd been taking medication that, yeah, it did get rid of her hives for the most part. Anyway, jumping ahead just a very short period of time, we can run some tests, find out why you get the hives. Something in your sense, ran some tests, found out she was eating some things, household care products, and some household cleaning products and personal care products,
Mm.
along with some foods, eliminated those things. within 9 days, she was phoning her physician saying, "Hey, I'm not taking the medication anymore because I found out why I get the hives." And skip forward just a little bit, read, "I'm taking hot showers and I'm working out to a sweat, things I haven't done in 2 years." Because even on the medication,
Yeah.
taking hot showers and working out to sweat she'd still get the hives, even on the meds. So this was completely, and again, this is where you get chills thinking of how great it was that you helped someone when you really didn't even know what you were doing. I just knew I was on the right track because that was over 20 years ago. So this laboratory work, what you said, was to look for the underlying causes and conditions instead of just treating the red light, snip the wires, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So on and on and on, story after story. The lady with the migraines, this lady with the hives. One last one, quick one for you, was a lady was coming in the office. She was very happy with our work, losing weight, more energy, better
Mm.
libido, just everything she's happy about. Um, and she said, "Reed, do you work with children?" And I said, "Well, I'm raising four and I have a football team. I love on the side, I would coach football. For 15 years, I'd coach football. Kids, just youth sports, you know." And I said, "Yeah, I worked with a lot of kids. Why?" She goes, "Well, they want to send my kid home from school if I don't put him on medication." I said, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, they said if I don't put him on Ritalin, Ritalin was the drug of choice back then for ADD,
Mm.
ADHD." And I said, "Well, do you think he has a Ritalin deficiency?" And she didn't laugh at all. I did, I thought I'd be cute. No, that didn't work with her. She's like, "No, I don't want to put my son on medication. He's only 9 years old." And I thought, oh my God. So who is it that told you? Is it a nurse? Is it a doctor at the school? Are they
Yeah.
telling you to put your kid on Ritalin? 9-year-old. Now, Ritalin is a class 2 narcotic. That's the same classification as cocaine. You know this very well. And I didn't think that was right. I said, "I don't know if I could help or not, but we'll run some labs." Ran some labs, and once again, just changed the everything, the diet and exercise schedule and bedtime and study time and things like that. So within 3 weeks of getting the results and getting a new regimen, no drugs, the principal of the school tracked me down and said, "Mr. Davis, you know, you've really done an amazing job here with young Billy. He's paying attention. He's not poking the other kids. He's not outbursting loudly." And again, you get these willies, you know, like you're feeling great. Oh yeah, that's cool. And uh, and then he said, "What'd you put him on?" Which totally deflated the whole situation. In other words, he just wanted to know what's in the bottle.
The quick
So he
fix.
could, yes, quick fix. So to your point, I've dealt with that uh, thousands of times, and it didn't matter what the symptom was.
Mm.
The red light, it could be green light, purple light, yellow light, blue light. You know,
Mm.
that doesn't matter.
Mm.
It's not the symptom that matters. And I'll take that one step further for you. It's not the lab result either, because you'll hear from functional medicine practitioners and others, "Well, Reed, I run labs." And I'll say, "Yeah, but then you treat the paper, not the person."
Mm.
So you take a lady who's tired and fatigued and her hair's thinning and she's gained weight that she can't lose and she has cold or numb extremities and things like that. She's constipated. Well, that sounds like thyroid problem, right?
Mm.
So doctors will, "Well, it sounds like thyroid. Let's run a test." And they run a test. "Yep, pat myself on the back. I found your problem. It's hypothyroidism." And so they have paper, they run a test, and then they give that person something to get the test results to change. They can come back in 3 months, we'll see what your test looks like now. So I say the symptoms aren't the problem. I also say that the lab report isn't the problem. That's just a result of the
No.
problem. So your low thyroid is also not the problem. It's a result of the problem. It's just a number on paper. And if you
Mm.
only treat that, like, you're just going to continue the cycle of trial and error, because those symptoms might go away, but more symptoms will appear later. In some of the, we then run another test. Oh, now it's low testosterone. Or you run another test, whatever it is. So you get the point that it's the test results aren't the problem either, and you have to look harder. You're right. It's a lot of work. Can be.
Also, we have to say that the world is rather becoming more challenging, certainly economically, financially. For many people, they're struggling, and they might be struggling because of their ill health. And one way or the other, money is tight. Now, our functional medicine tests, unfortunately, they are not on the cheap side. And many a time, certainly here in New Zealand, they wouldn't be funded by insurance companies, etc. So it can be a challenge. So whilst there are beautiful, I mean, if money is not an issue, I would have a good half a dozen that I immediately throw at people, and then some other tests that come later on. Um, but that might not be financially viable to people. If you only had one test that you can get the patient to do, what would that test be? What is the low-hanging fruit? What is the test that gives you most information for you to work with?
There's really that's a tough question.
I know.
Because
That's why I asked it.
and that's why you asked it. So we want to collect and identify as many healing opportunities as possible. Now that's a great word for your audience. Instead of diagnosis and treatment, we have healing opportunities. What's really out of balance? And remember, these things are far upstream and they're interacting with each other. So what I said, there's hormone testing, immune testing, digestive system testing, detoxification. Your liver's congested. There's all these things going on. And the other test. So which one? I probably would start with where I think the dominoes begin to fall. And I can show you how the dominoes fall if you'll do the rest of the testing too. So the idea ideally would be to identify multiple healing opportunities.
Absolutely.
And because the application of healing principles affects them all simultaneously. So that's how it works. So we have a beautiful system of natural protocols. But if you look at the hormones, cortisol and DHEA, you're actually measuring the catabolic and anabolic levels in the body. Now they need to be balanced. Catabolism, catabolic, your body's breaking down. Anabolic, anabolism, sounds like cannibalism, but it's not. So, that needs to be balanced out. So cortisol and DHEA, if they're out of balance, then your body's breaking down. You have cortisol dominance. So you're catabolic. Now your body's going to break down. And you can so if you knew that, then you'd have a measurement of how much stress is affecting your health. So it's an overall just because some people they don't even know how much stress they're under. I mean, they're really stressed out. And it isn't just mental, emotional. You mentioned some things like watching the news. You got financial problems. You've got relationship problems. You don't like your job or your kids are misbehaving or whatever it is. That's just one type of stress. If you think about it, I came from the environmental law and conservation field. And so I know about the chemicals in the environment, and they are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They're not just in the air and water. They're in our food, in our drinks, in our everything. And so they've tested the snow on top of Mount Everest, and it had 300 chemicals in it.
Exactly.
The snow on the top of Mount Everest.
Yeah.
Now, so it's so ubiquitous. So that's also just another form of stress. It affects the core, and I can show you on a test that will throw you into a catabolic state as well. So whether it's that mental emotional stress, catabolic state, chemical, environmental stressors, catabolic state, not to mention all the other things we put our bodies through. The mind happens to be what I call very well used. It's definitely the amount of sports and things from skiing and jujitsu and kickboxing and surfing and all of these things, motorcycle and stuff. You get aches and pains. I
Mm,
have had injections in both shoulders, my neck, my low back, both knees, and things like that. I haven't had anything replaced yet,
mm,
but probably going to need some hip surgery here, all of that type of ache and pain. That's also stress. It also throws you into a catabolic state. So
mm,
you asked me what one test would I do? And you've already done your blood work. You're told nothing's wrong with you. Everything looks normal. Or maybe you got high cholesterol or something going on. There's some good that can come out of that for sure, in terms of lifestyle and things. But mostly it's done for treatment, because that's how that system works. It waits till you're so bad, you need drugs to correct it. So we don't use that. So I look at really, and they're sometimes they're not covered by insurance, these tests. So
mm,
people do pay out of pocket, but it's the
mm.
best investment they could possibly make.
Absolutely. No.
So you got catabolic, anabolic, and I could show you how the chips fall from there, how the dominoes fall. That affects the sex hormones. The next thing you know, your testosterone, your estrogen, your progesterone are out of balance, and you have those complaints.
Mm,
So from just catabolic, anabolic, you're tired, you're not sure what's wrong. You start drinking a bunch of coffee in the morning, which we all love, but then you're drinking alcohol at night to try to get to sleep and try
yeah.
to relax because you're so up during the day. You've got to do something online, right? We deserve that. Now, I'm kidding, of course, here, but I'm getting that just from that. Now, when the sex hormones go, which is the next domino to fall, well, now you need testosterone. You need your periods are off, your early menopause, your all of these things. Well, then that takes a lot of straightening out. And people are selling supplements and there's drugs you can take and all that. Now, I can go on and on with this for the next 3 hours. So you need to stop
Yes,
me.
you're so right. But I mean, if you look at it, there's so many, and we are misguided by financial interests because it's much easier to sell you, to peddle you some snake oil that now is supposedly lifting your testosterone, for example, for us
Yeah,
men. If we
big
really
one.
were to look at testosterone, there are many factors that are coming together, but one of them is, for example, the cortisol steal, which is a term when you look at lab testing, is that hormones are needed throughout the body, and if there is a super overdrive of the sympathetic stress fight and fight flight system, then the hormones that are needed to sustain that system are stolen from other areas. So, for example, from the testosterone. So instead of creating testosterone, you are creating your stress hormones. That's what the body needs. It doesn't need to procreate right now. It needs to survive. That's what the body needs. So that's one example. Plus, then, of course, your emotional overeating. Meanwhile, you have packed on 20, 30 kilogram that were not supposed to be there. Well, guess what? Adiposity, so us being big, that in its own right is a huge determinant for testosterone levels. So suddenly, by us actually looking at the bigger picture, you realize you don't need a testosterone tablet or injection or whatever you're thinking about. What you need to do is actually to stop for a moment on your hamster wheel, get off, find out what is really happening within your system, and from there take it and see, well, what are sustainable things? Because otherwise you're back to the 1st January. Oh, we are changing everything and a super new diet and a new tablet, etc. And then, yeah, 10 days later, you're right. You're back.
Yeah, I think everybody can identify with that, turning over the new leaf and and things. It's a lot of times we wait until we're way down
Yeah.
before we do anything about it. So I have something, and I'd love to go on with this downward spiral and how the dominoes fall. Maybe we could come back to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with regard to what you just said, I think it's really important to know. So if I'm I speak before audiences, and I'll try this sometimes. How are you guys doing? Everybody says fine. You look, no, you look right at a guy in the front row. How are you doing? And he says, fine. Well, why is he saying fine? Because he doesn't have any symptoms. So he's in this sort of, I call this the wellness meter, right? Here's the wellness meter. So I'm fine, which means I don't have any symptoms. Now, if that guy gets tired, or that gal, the woman, whoever it is, or they something else, some symptom, well, what are they now? They aren't fine. They get and they do something like a couple cups of coffee to get back to here. So, which is no symptoms. Now, came up with this when I realized 20 years ago, I pulled up to a coffee stand here we have them in the parking lots. You can drive up and they'll just give it right to you in your car. And this was a two-way. So there's a guy on the other side, and now I was ordering just a 12-ounce regular cup of coffee. The guy on the other side ordered a big coffee with 4 shots of espresso and 4 sugars. Now, the first thing I thought was that has to taste like shit, like that can't even taste good. But why is he doing such a strong self-medication? He was here and he just wanted to get back to normal. All right. So what happens if you keep doing that? You're tired all the time. You're tired all the time. You get back to normal, back to normal. It's pretty soon your self-treatment, your self-medication won't work anymore because the downward spiral causing it is going. So you'll need bigger medicine, bigger medicine. Pretty soon you'll have diagnosed conditions. You'll be sick. Now, let me just do it this way for 1 second to make the point. If you're here because you're tired or whatever the symptom is, you get back to what's this? If this is tired, what's this? You can't just get back to no symptoms.
Yeah.
This is high energy.
Yeah.
And what's this? That's a really super immune system where you never get sick.
Yeah.
What's this? This is fully functioning, every cell running smoothly and perfectly.
Yeah.
This, by the way, is dead, no function. So here's dead, here's functioning perfectly. Most people are satisfied just with no symptoms. It's not a high enough ideal or goal to be that.
Yeah.
And so
but also, Reed, let's give them a break because I mean, yes, we are saying okay, they are satisfied here. They don't know anything else. They have not experienced that state of wow, where's this energy coming from? And I think that is the power that we have to introduce people to that kind of state. And often enough, they know what works because they have been on holiday. They might even have had a wellness holiday of sorts where they actually experienced the massage, the excellent food, the exercise, all that. They feel like a million miles, but they then don't know how to translate it once they're back from Fiji or from Hawaii or wherever they went into their normal daily life, where they do not follow similar principles and where life overtakes them and they let it.
You're so right. I can recall a situation, and perhaps some of your listeners have experienced this, where I had a lady after just a week of working with me, she called me up and said, something's wrong. I said, what is it? She goes, I don't know. I just have all this energy.
My point.
I mean, truly, that happened in our because when you go beyond just get rid of symptoms, yeah, things can work out quite remarkable. The clarity of thought, the which allows you to be on purpose and get more stuff done. It is quite remarkable.
Oh, we have got so much. We could talk for hours here, Reed.
Well, let me before you have to go, I got to tell you that same idea of catabolic, anabolic, the body's breaking down is from stress. Every kind of stress, whether the mental, emotional. Look, there's spiritual, existential stress. I think not having a purpose in life would be very stressful. That's why people die when they retire because they have no purpose anymore. And that's an existential stress. So you have the mental, emotional, spiritual, existential. You have physical from aches and pains and old injuries and things. And you have, of course, the ubiquitous chemical stress that's 24 hours a day, including electromagnetic frequencies and radiation, and you just name it. And so the downward spiral goes way beyond just catabolic, anabolic. Oh, now your sex hormones are off and you're
Yeah.
frustrated, whatever it might be. The next thing to go is the immune system. So, because it affects, and we measure secretory IgA, you're familiar with SIGA in the gut. That's the main ingredient in your immune system of the gut. And when that layer starts to thin out because of stress, you get a dysbiosis, which is an imbalance in the good and bad flora. People are in your audience, I'm sure, are very familiar with that idea of probiotics versus antibiotics, and there's a natural balance in your gut. And when that gets thrown off because of low C8, because of stress, now you have more, I call them bigger, badder bugs. The invasion and the infestation of bacteria and viruses and parasites and funguses and things. They're more able. So you see, it's not the bug, it's the host, right? And so when you're a weak host because of ultimately stress, now you've
Mm.
got those things, and then you get the maldigestion, malabsorption, leaky gut, and then you get toxic from
Mm.
particles going into the bloodstream that shouldn't be going through the digestive tract. And I can show you that downward spiral
Mm.
on paper if you'll do enough of the investigation, enough of our labs. We ask everyone to run 5 labs, and
Mm.
it's it's an investment in oneself, and it's all fee for service. So my
Mm.
practitioners that I train, they we earn our keep. We earn our keep. Yes, you do invest, but we will
Right.
over deliver every time and
Mm.
outperform any other system that is being out there today, including,
Mm.
I hate to say it, functional medicine. And the reason for that is that the functional medicine, at least in the US, is still handcuffed, bound quite tightly to the diagnosis and treatment model because they can't get paid otherwise. And the
I see.
medical system here is so uptight that, if you're operating outside of those
Mm.
boundaries, you're going to get your wrist slapped at best to where you could lose your license. We now actually have doctors giving up their licenses. They don't want to practice medicine anymore. They want to fix people instead.
Well, well.
And again, we're in 50 countries, so I know that we're on the right track. Again, I'm still learning after 25 years,
Yeah.
as we all are. But it's quite remarkable that people can take responsibility for their own health. If they do,
Mm.
they can get in charge and have some success.
Beautiful. And I think that is the point. So if people say, well, what's my chance of getting better? I've been suffering from autoimmune problems now for the last 10 years. I'm a wreck. And the short answer is, I would say 99% will get better. They will improve. To which extent, that is hard to predict. For some people, there can be magic improvements. For the bigger bulk, I would say they get massively better. And I say massive, I would say at least, symptom reductions of 50%. That would be sort of something that I would expect once you follow through with recommendations, once you actually stick to a food plan that has been identified as most likely to succeed, once you actually replenish the resources that are seriously low, the selenium, the zinc, the magnesium, those kind of things that are just crap in our nutrition due to, for example, New Zealand, the soil. Our soil is deficient in zinc and
Oh,
selenium.
yours too?
So, oh, absolutely. So therefore, yeah, we are not nutrients dense or as nutrient dense food as we probably should eat. So it is what it is. And yes, you can whine about it, or you can actually say, well, actually, supplementation is coming into its own here. We know that vitamin D levels are chronically low in our society here, and
Everywhere.
Exactly. So, and that's the reason I can't even order vitamin D in a lab test because they say if you think that you need vitamin D, just it's a waste of our resources. Just supplement it. Um,
Wow, yeah.
Interesting. And
Yeah, it is. It is. Both I grew up in Canada, actually. I'm in Southern California. I've been here 40 years, but I grew up in Canada where both of my grandfathers grew food. And my brother and I would go out in the garden and pull things up and wash them off in rainwater and eat them raw a lot. Now, back then we were getting our minerals and vitamins and essential fatty acids, the trace elements, the phytonutrients, all of the things that are required genetically to be full humans. You need really good nutrition. So we've studied that and we know what's missing because of soil's depletion, like you said. So supplementation for what's missing from food is the first, it's actually substitution because it's not there. And so there's other reasons to use supplements. They can support certain systems. You can stimulate like your immune system. You mentioned zinc, and anyone who's going on a flight should take some supplements to stimulate your immune system while you're away. You're going to come up against these things. So substituting for what's missing, support for poor digestion while you're healing and these kind of things, or for your adrenal glands, which are helping you handle stress. So substitution, support, stimulation, and another S of substitute of supplements is self-treatment. You don't have to always take the harsh medicines, especially around some of these anti-parasite, antibacterial, antifungals, things like that. It's just so easy. The and colds and flus and what have you. The use of antibiotics is outrageous and um, harmful. So supplements can come in very handy. But back to, having grown up in Canada eating real food, uh, we were aware of these even back then. I'm 71 years old. My mother, 65, 70 years ago, was giving us vitamin D from cod liver oil.
all
In
right.
Canada, it's cloudy a lot. What do you do? Oh, and we didn't test for it. So
Uh,
so there's some truth to that. But nowadays you can test just about, well, not everything, but a lot of things that would
yeah.
tell you what the healing opportunities are, and then take charge and do something about it.
And that's a beautiful way how to look at things, isn't it? The healing opportunities, because that's what this is really all about. We try
Yeah.
to reduce the factors that keep damaging you, that keep holding you back from being the best version of yourself. And we try to supplement, to add in those things that your body really needs. But for that, you need a kind of a mentor. You need kind of someone or a team who can assist you. And I think that is the key thing. There are so many things that you don't know that you don't know. So you
Oh yeah.
think you just hear one little snippet there or one recommendation there. And that's that kind of here, take 2 tablets and I'll see you in 3 months. That if you only address one thing, do one change and see what that does, it's probably less likely that you will succeed. Whilst if you identify a number of things and start methodically taking tiny steps, but consistent steps in the right direction, suddenly things will change. And it's 1 plus 1 plus 1 doesn't make 3, it makes 5 or makes 10 because you've got A, compound interest over time, plus B, you have got an interaction that is happening and that changes you from the inside out. And suddenly the flow on effects of more energy, of a better outlook on life, a change in your mental health, a change in your physical health, a reduction of the symptoms that you were suffering from. That is that is magic. That is like yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful experience that is waiting for everyone out there. And it's just that people don't know what they don't know, and they don't know how to
You know,
get there.
you've just really uh, answered a big question, which is what's the most important aspect of the health pursuit? And I believe that point of view is the first place to start. Your point of view. You just described a beautiful point of view that we're responsible and that the downward spiral can be reversed, with the right actions. And actions require, again, a point of view, a way of looking at things. So I know that a lot of your previous guests, I've looked at some of your shows, Stephan, and you've had amazing people where that's their main focus. And so you mentioned having a team kind of around you of different influences. And so I'm not an expert in mental emotional health. I have to hang on myself. Again, point of view does it for me and meditation and things. But I am an expert in the lab work and the numbers that we get from and the healing opportunities and those things. How you remedy it is lifestyle. It's all those influences. You said there's so many influences. I call that epigenetics, and it's 92% of your health. It's not your genes that you can't change who your parents were. You can't change who your parents were. It's what you do with the life and the body that you have, right?
Love it.
Including the state of mind, this point of view. So I think it's a well-rounded approach. And yeah.
It's beautiful. Reed, you're an amazing man. You've led a life of enthusiasm. You went out there at first as an environmental warrior and now as a health warrior. And for that, I want to say thank you. I want to express my gratitude just as much as your patients have been grateful to you. I think it's really important that we accept that we are hugely challenged with our environment, with everything, but that there is hope, that there is help, that we can go out there and make this world a better place. But we have to start with ourselves. We have to start with taking responsibility, holding us accountable to our own actions. And it doesn't mean to say that you can't have a piece of chocolate or a cheesecake. Don't worry about that. Stop being full of shame and full of guilt for everything that you do. That's only negative stress that doesn't help you. Enjoy that piece of cake, absolutely, but just don't have it 3 times a day for 7 days a
every day.
week. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, you're the real warrior, Stephan, because you're putting yourself out there and bringing other, again, that whole sort of team or you're bringing them all together in a place where your listeners can learn. And
Thank you
I
so
would
much.
just ask the audience to pay attention and do something about it.
Yeah,
If you feel inspired, go do it right now.
yeah, so
If
true.
it's cleaning out your fridge of all the stuff shouldn't be in there, or
Yeah.
your cabinets, throw it in the garbage and start with, like there's just so many things you can do to change habits. Anyway, you're the warrior.
Thank you so much, Reed. You're an amazing man. And you guys out there, thank you so much for tuning in. Look after yourself and live with intention. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.